of the Village of Lake Bluff Business Advisory Ad Hoc Committee special meeting for Tuesday, June 4th. And roll call.
Sure. Member Anderson.
Here.
Member Fisher.
Here.
Member Lynch.
Here.
Co-Chair George.
Here.
Co-Chair Lemieux.
Here.
Member Lemmy.
Here.
And Member Osterline.
Here.
And Mr. Lawrence is not here. But you have a quorum.
Thank you.
Is that somebody logging in?
It's possible.
First order of business is consideration of the minutes of April 30th, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Brad, second by Deb. Any discussion?
I have one comment. There seems to be an inconsistency, and maybe I'm reading this wrong, but between the spreadsheet on the last page of our packet and the stricken documents in the minutes. And I'll point it out. In the minutes, Ignite Stonebridge Development, it's written as item number 3, but it's after item number 5. It says in section, item B, make it clear to development community the village is open for business. Okay? And it was said here that that should be deleted, but in the spreadsheet on page 6, speaking of Ignite Stonebridge Development, it says, make it clear to owner and broader development community the village is open for business. Which I think was the intention, but it was stricken in the minutes, the opposite way.
Well, I'll say this, and one of the things I was going to explain when we got to this, I did take some liberties in modifying and tinkering with this to make it, because it seemed to facilitate itself by looking at the minutes, reviewing my notes, and as I kept working through this, trying to distill this down to what I thought were the direction that was, so that I took some license.
Okay.
But you guys will certainly have a chance tonight to talk about what you think should be here or not be here. So this is not final yet, but I think that's one of the goals of tonight.
But if we're reviewing the minutes, we need to make a correction in the minutes now, right?
Well, I don't know if the minutes are wrong. That's what I'm saying. What's here and what's here could be different.
Okay, this is different than that.
And that's what you were pointing out, right? There's a difference.
Correct.
Yes. So I think the minutes reflect what the conversation was, but I think I took some license, or you think that's not accurate? You think the minutes are wrong?
I think the minutes are, I thought the consensus of the group last month was that we indeed did want to make it clear to the development community that Lake Bluff is open for business.
So where it is stricken in the minutes, it should not be stricken.
Correct.
Yeah, okay,
From my recollection of the
Okay.
meeting, yes.
okay.
Now, I don't think that necessarily has to be under the header, and probably shouldn't be under the header, Ignite Stonebridge, because I think that was a comment about development throughout the community, which addressed the idea that multifamily, missing middle, all the other items we discussed were up for discussion with developers.
Okay.
So do you want to correct the minutes?
I will, the minutes, certainly the reflection should be from, I think as the motion was made from Member Anderson, was to reflect that change in the minutes. And I guess all we would need is that Member Fisher would accept that amendment, and that's how the motion would reflect that, with that edit to the minutes.
Sure.
Okay. Is that a roll call vote?
It's a voice vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is non-agenda items and visitors. The chair and committee allocate 50 minutes during this item for those individuals who would like the opportunity to address the committee on any matter not listed on the agenda. Each person addressing the committee is asked to limit their comments to a maximum of 5 minutes, and since there's no one in the audience, we'll move on. Item 4, committee sets the order of the meeting. The chair and committee will entertain requests from anyone present on the order of business to be conducted during the board meeting. Any changes to the order? Hearing none. On to item 5, continued discussion regarding economic development goals, tactics, and measures of success. And prior to the meeting start, I asked Drew what he had hoped to come out of the meeting tonight with, and Drew, maybe you could go through that with us, and then we can start the exercise of.
Yeah, and I think it's as simple as, does the table match everybody's recollection and goals?
This table?
Yes, the bigger
The big
table,
one.
the bigger table.
Okay.
Does that reflect, it's the same, obviously, but does that reflect the work product that you thought you directed me to? As I mentioned earlier, I did try to work with this, and I think one of the things I wanted to do was turn the tactics. I almost thought originally that the tactics could be universal, and that, but then there were some distinctions enough. It was getting too complicated, and so I just left it like it was. Again, I was trying to, maybe you can get to that someday, but I was having a struggle with getting there. And then I listed the potential, all the measures and the other notes that came up. But again, I tried to make this as simple and as clean as possible and as lean as possible using the direction given. I think it's probably really close to being a final product, and if the goal tonight is to make sure that it is, that would be great, get through that far. And then there would be a conversation about, is there or should there be any sort of prioritization of these high-level goals? And if you wanted to do that, we can do a similar exercise. I've got the stickers, I've listed them back there. We can go back and everybody can say this is the highest priority. But maybe they're equally as important, or maybe one of them stands out. But that's, I think, would be a goal to have a conversation around that. And then talk about what is the next steps? What do we do with this document? And I'm happy to go into that, but I think generally it's to deliver it to the village board in a committee of the whole workshop setting where this group would meet with the board and talk about this and share that, and then the board can say, we like this, maybe you should work more or go in some more details about this one, or yes, they could say, we agree at 100%, let's send these two to zoning and start them direct them to work on that, or maybe we should have, some rethinking on these issues and we're concerned about this, but that's the next stop, I think. And then maybe down the road, let's say one of these items did get referred directly to zoning, maybe that's you all having a joint workshop with them to talk about it too. But I think the next initial step would be with the village board in a workshop setting. And I had a conversation with Co-Chair Dewar about the same thing earlier
Yeah,
today.
and that seems to make sense. I would support checking the edit on this and prioritizing it, and then getting it shaped up in such a way that we could go to a Cal meeting with the village board and see how they want us to proceed.
Would, if we're okay with this, we can move on to the prioritization discussion, but if you'd like to read through these, if you haven't had the opportunity to already, are we okay with these as they stand? Right.
I have one question, and I think I brought it up last month, but I'm still unclear how, as a potential measure of success, village board entering into a development agreement is going to take place. I can't recall in any instance in Lake Bluff where the village of Lake Bluff has signed a development agreement for property it doesn't own. Now, there are places in R5 where the village does have ownership, but for example, Stonebridge or Block 3, it's all privately owned property, and so I don't see that as a means to an end.
Well, the village did have a development agreement with Stonebridge. We did with other developments in town with Target.
But with the owner,
with the property owners.
right. But not with an outside developer? Because you were talking about an RFP.
No, I'm talking about actually a development agreement with the property owner, that once the zoning and entitlement process went through, that usually there's a list of public improvements. Then and that development agreement identifies the public improvements that are gonna be made, and ultimately, presumably, taken over by the village for maintenance after a certain period of time. It outlines responsibility for during construction. It outlines if there's payments related to other village ordinances for impact fees, and sort of that it covers a broad range of items, so that expectations are clearly spelled out, who's doing what when, and what are the respective roles of either party, the village or the development group. So that was true of.
Okay, so the development agreement wouldn't take place until there's a new buyer or developer involved?
Correct.
Okay.
So should that say development agreement with property owners where they exist or something like that?
To me, that's
Inherent?
unnecessary,
Okay.
but if
All right.
it's,
That's
but
fine.
obviously it's maybe not to the average person, right? Who's involved, who are the parties involved in that?
Okay.
That can be parents, village, owner.
Okay.
I guess I have a question in terms of, is there any advantage to maybe strengthening the wording under tactics where we're saying work with property owners and stakeholders? I mean, are we trying to make clear to owners that the village has a desire to incentivize? Is there any, to the language that you were saying in the minutes, are we trying to clear, work with just sounds like, okay, we've been doing it for 25 years. Is there something different about saying make clear to property owners the village's desire to incentivize development of that parcel or something? Or is that stepping over what we can say? I don't know.
Well, it's gonna be clear if the zoning changes, but I think the property owners have a right to know that the village is working towards a rezoning of the property. So it'll cause a,
Should that be mentioned under that strategy part, though, in that first box, about the, allow developers to be creative with a three-story? They've thought in the past they were creative with the three-story, and it never happened.
I guess I just hear that we're trying to incentivize, and I don't know whether we're communicating that extra effort on our part, and maybe I'm just not hearing it right.
Underneath that first tactic, work with property owners, the first one says evaluate possible building permit fees and impact fee reduction.
You think that
That's,
covers it? Okay.
but that's a little softer, right? It's evaluate. It doesn't say do it.
Right.
Right, so it
Right.
says evaluate. So, and maybe, that when this goes to a workshop with the board, you can walk through that, say, listen, hey, we had a conversation about how far one of the continuum we thought we should be, right? And
Right.
maybe that depends on the development, what it looks like, and,
Okay.
is it furthering other policy objectives, whether it be, environmental protection or, protecting a woodland or wetland area?
Right.
What are the trade-offs? But I think that would be certainly, could be part of that conversation.
Okay.
It would seem to me that incentives would be one of the alternatives that we might have to offer. And if, do you want to go so far as to say, like develop and evaluate alternatives underneath this? I mean, it's kind of a work with property owners and stakeholders is sort of at 1,000-foot level. It doesn't really add anything, but at least another level,
Well, I mean,
a slightly more specific would be owners, stakeholders, period, develop and evaluate alternatives.
for incentives, Mark?
No, for tactics.
I think evaluate the possible building permits, fees, and impact reduction says an awful lot, quite frankly. There's a lot of opposition where you look at a parcel that you're gonna have to pay $43,000, $38,000 per new residence. This is a conversation that can happen in the future with said developer. how do we work through some of these things? You know, 100 new residents over in Stonebridge, that's a big chunk of money. And if the village is suggesting possible fee reductions, that opens the doors, you know, whether it's into Jawa, whether it's in storm sewer, whether it's, you know, the Naperville fee or whatever. So I think if you try and pinpoint it, it might minimize opportunities for other discussions. So quite
So
frankly, I would
it-
leave it the way it reads. It's open invitation for conversation.
So you're okay with it the way it is, evaluate possible building permit fee?
It's opening a door for somebody to sit down and let's talk.
Okay.
There was with no criteria per se.
Yeah, I wonder if we, between the word evaluate, evaluate possible incentives, put the word incentives in there, such as building permit fees, impact fees.
Yeah. It's specifically non-specific, and, well, what that does is it introduce the opportunity for
Yeah.
conversation about something I don't know
Yeah.
about.
Yeah,
Exactly.
got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else?
Did we want to re-explore this statement that we, according to the minutes, we struck under Stonebridge, the phrase "village is open for business," so that rather than just, and so it would just say that the village supports development and redevelopment or something.
Well, I think what, perhaps it's not communicated effectively, but I think what we were doing was saying, you know, kind of, we recognize this didn't go well in the past, but we're open for conversation on this.
Revisit.
I'm just saying, if we took it out last meeting,
Well, I don't know that we did we? I mean, I know the minutes said that, but did we? That's your markup?
Yeah, that was. Yeah, I think my mindset was, under the Stonebridge, it does say make it clear, right? It says it there in the first box. It doesn't say it for CBD.
Right.
No, but I thought that was a discussion about the R5 district, about Stonebridge, about potential other developments in the community, that we want to see people attracted to Lake Bluff. We want to see people finding what they want in Lake Bluff rather than leaving Lake Bluff to go to a community elsewhere.
yeah, actually, now that I look at what I wrote down last time, I did not scratch that out.
Yeah. So is there an issue with the phrase, "the village is open for business"? Is there a preference to strike that or leave it as is?
The only note I made the last time is this clear enough? I mean, what does it mean to say that the village is open for
Well, it
business?
supports development and redevelopment.
So,
When I was going back through this, that was one of the areas where I thought you could.
what is that?
I think it says it all.
Okay, all right. I mean, that's good, because you're on the receiving end of this. I mean, as, you know, I mean,
I've been up against it.
your role, our roles are very different, so I appreciate your perspective.
Yeah, you know, there's a deterrent, if it's black and white, but you can argue about it. When the village is suggesting that, you know, bring us some new ideas, some new perspectives, or something that we could play out over the period of time, you know. Doesn't sound like a municipal perspective. It sounds like we're dead serious about this. We want to figure out how we can do some redevelopment, how we can develop new interests in Lake Bluff. This says it.
One of the things I was saying in my head when I was looking at this is that, again, the direction last time, and I didn't want to take too much license, but you could take that, and that's almost like the cover memo to deliver this list.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
That's the umbrella statement.
We are
It's
interested.
kind of a theme,
Yeah.
yes, yeah,
a mission statement.
yeah.
Make it clear.
All right,
Let's be a little open-ended, because, I mean, for example, if somebody comes to the village with a 3-story building that's attractive, blends with downtown, and it has all two-bedroom, high-end apartments that are targeted for empty nesters. I would think that would be a perfect example where you could waive impact fees for the school system, which is the bulk of it. If Stonebridge were developed with a mix of single-family and duplex and apartments or some other type of more dense housing, provide incentive to that, for that missing middle part that you want to promote within the village,
Incentivize it.
and hold firm on the single-family stuff that it might have 4 or 5 kids in the school system, though the average is much lower. But, I think that's the type of tool and implementation that can make a positive change, rather than just saying.
you're saying just
the
make a
impact
big old
fees of
umbrella
Any
that-
4-bedroom house is gonna be $42,000 regardless,
Paid those, make it clear. Perspective, I think part of this started was you remove a home and you put up 2, and you're paying impact fees, right? But how much more does it really impact?
Right.
So there's your deterrent. I think makes it clear that the village is interested in any conversation.
So I think, Brad, you make a good point. So it's one size doesn't fit all. The incentive would be
Right.
based on
Customized.
the development proposal or redevelopment proposal, yeah. Anything else in the details
Would you
here?
want that example that Brad gave in the notes of that
I
section?
think it's a good idea to put it
That's
in
where I was
so we
starting to
don't,
write it.
so we don't lose it. I think it's a good point.
Yeah, that was a really good point.
Because I think for anybody who's concerned that we're waiving every fee going forward, it's going to be development
So I'm
specific.
putting, as an example, in
Yeah.
the note section, as an empty nester apartments in the CBD may consider waiver of school fees.
Yep,
And single-family development in Stonebridge
maybe
would
not.
require full freight.
Might.
Same as in
Might.
the
Might.
R5
Yeah.
district. Right now in the R5 district, you've got most of the properties in the R5 district are single family. If somebody wants to do what was originally intended in R5 and put 2 units, why charge impact fees that are twice what they would be if you built a single family house?
Yeah.
And I did a little nuance, because you did say more. I put single-family in Stonebridge may carry full freight, but missing middle housing may not.
I think
To your
that's
point,
fair.
like incentivizing the goal to have diversified housing product type.
Right, and that could even be done with parking and things like that
Yes.
for missing
Right.
middle.
Right.
Because you can't do
Yep.
parking
Yep.
the way our code says
Yeah.
on some of our lots.
I think the board would appreciate concrete examples.
Yes, yeah, I would. Anything else on here? Do we want to prioritize them? Do they all have equal priority?
Can I ask a couple clarification questions? So we mentioned high-quality commercial and residential. What qualifies as high quality? I mean, what do you mean by that? Because it's mentioned numerous places.
I'll jump in and then let Drew. There's a concern every time we get close to this that we're talking about low-income, multifamily type stuff. And I think what we're trying to be clear about is we're thinking about developments that are consistent with the character of the village. We're not talking about low-end things that people might have an objection to. So we're trying to be real clear about staying within that development and redevelopment will stay within the character of the village.
Is that kind of like saying you're not going to have affordable housing then?
No.
'Cause
Yes.
that's not really affordable housing.
No,
If
no, I think we're trying to stay very clear of we're saying alternative housing, not affordable.
So market-driven, high-quality architectural design and materials.
So, I mean, we've got, to a point that Brad kind of alluded to a moment ago, we've got a lot of people that, are empty nesters for whom something in the downtown area, 2 bedrooms, is perfect, and they may not be overly cost-sensitive about the thing. It doesn't have to come in at $600,000.
So when we're talking about the missing middle, we're more or less talking about multi-family homes, but not affordable. I mean, not lower
Correct.
cost.
Correct,
So
yeah.
the middle that we're looking at isn't middle income, it's
No.
middle as far as
Middle
being more
density in
diverse?
the sense that it's not a high-rise, it's things between, it's not even a mid-rise, it's low, low-rise, attached multifamily. It could be row houses, it could be condos, it could be
Duplex.
yeah, a triplex, duplex. There's a continuum that's actually downstairs when you walk into the door, right by, it says, what is missing, middle housing? I can give you more than you'd ever want to consume
That's
on missing
fine.
middle housing.
When I was looking at middle, I didn't know if it was middle in as far as expenses go, middle as far as
a good question.
multifamily.
Yeah.
Yeah, good question.
So-
We've been dealing with it, so we knew what it was. Good question.
Could I ask then, to kind of follow up on Lori's point, if we included before, your point was the board might appreciate examples or an EG. Is this an EG that we would want to put into this to clarify what we mean by
High quality,
high quality?
doesn't hurt. So I'm right, HQ means market rate driven products of high quality materials and design.
Does that work for you?
That work for you guys? Does that follow what we mean? Okay.
Anything else to clarify this for other groups that will see it?
We talk about three-story structures as being a limitation in the CBD. There was no comment, I don't think, about height limitations anywhere elsewhere in town specifically. Are we, as a group, deciding that anything above 3 stories is a non-option anywhere in the community? And I'll give you an example. If somebody came in with a 4-story senior condo building as a part of Stonebridge, would we automatically say no to that? I wouldn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
I don't know,
In fairness, I think that the way it reads is to protect thy neighbor's sunlight at the end of the day. That's really what the whole thing is about,
That's where I was having an issue, that 3-story again over here.
Over here, it might not be right, because people can't put their garden in their backyard like they used to before they put it up. But if a developer were to come in town, specifically to the conversation in Stonebridge, and it's taken into consideration that the lower homes have a right to daylight playing, then maybe the structure is in a location per se by design that's not going to influence other people's afternoon light. It could be something like that.
So is thinking about that from a performance standpoint, the issue is height and not necessarily stories. I mean, I've mentioned in the past, there's a development in Highland Park that's just north of the Wintrust Bank, right across the street. And the first floor is depressed by 3 feet nominally. And so they're able to stack 3 stories on that in the height that would not exceed what we previously talked about, which was 30 or 32 feet or something like that, which is what we previously considered for Block 3. And so we jumped from performance, to your point, if the issue is casting a shadow. We jumped from that performance measure to just saying 3 floors, when in fact we took away an architect's and developers' flexibility to offer something that would work that happened to be 3 floors. Does that
So,
make sense?
Go ahead.
Tough one. I think, block 3 is specifically related to block 3 because it's surrounded by,
Yep.
single family.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I sat on the board and I heard people say, I'm worried about a shadow cast on my home on the north, on North Avenue. I get that, but it's, it has nothing to do with 3 floors. It has everything to do with the height.
Location, my opinion. You could have a 4-story building out up against the open lands, at Stonebridge. That's not gonna influence existing and/or future single-family homes.
So there are 2 issues here. One is CBD, and we're saying 3 stories, and we might want to say something else. And the other is with Stonebridge. Is that the only area? It probably is, isn't it? I guess other than the village's own
10 acres
10
by
acres.
Jawa.
Those are the
10
2
acre
areas
by Jawa.
where we might consider higher.
And that's being talked about as part of the missing middle housing, that those are sites that are being examined for potential of having that. Stonebridge is not, but the
10 acres.
the 10 acres is. Let me try to answer, Brad, your original question. The answer is not sure. And I'll go back to what the Stonebridge development that was originally approved that Chris Rentz and his partner presented to the village. We're going to repurpose the manor.
The manor
and
house was gonna be condominiums, and
That's
that
what's the
building's
gatehouse.
taller than any building in
That's
East
my
Lake
point,
Bluff.
right? And so if somebody said, we want to recreate what was there and have what was part of the original plan, that's, without the historical preservation, it's a lot, much more economical to do it that way. Who knows? That could be an outcome. So the answer is not sure. Because that would be attached multifamily, right? And
Yeah,
it's-
I just don't wanna see, I don't wanna see us make I don't wanna make a recommendation that precludes it.
That handcuffs us.
I don't know that anything written here does.
So, yeah, that was my point. So
Yeah.
we've said 3 stories, and Mark, I hear you whether we wanted to say that or not, but skipping over that for a moment. Then, now we go down to Stonebridge. We don't have the 10-acre plot on this grid, but down in Stonebridge, we don't limit it to 3 stories, but should we say we're willing to consider that, where daylight plane is not an issue?
Are we already kind of saying that we're open for business? I think that supports
Well, it's
development.
maybe we put it in the notes, I don't know. I mean, if we're open for business, that is a further, to me, evidence that we are open for business if we're willing to talk about taller structures where daylight plane is not impacted as it might be in East Lake Bluff or
4-story
the
building
terraces.
on 176 or in Stonebridge has lake views.
Yeah.
I don't even know if we need to be specific about it. If we're open for business and we've established that, that is to say we're willing to consider all the various alternatives,
Okay,
then why wave a red flag?
okay. And I could support that position. The only thing I think, and I think that's what actually triggered the conversation, is the first thing here says 3 stories, so there might be a tendency to carry that thinking, that 3-story thinking further down the page.
But it says that's specific to CBD.
I know, but it still triggered a conversation here about whether we'd be willing to accept more elsewhere.
I guess maybe what it says is it depends.
So maybe you can go to the next item on the list where it says support new high-quality commercial and resident. Well, that can be for the multifamily or Stonebridge, is maybe it's new high-quality and creative. That way you're not putting any bookends, and it's more language consistent with open to different ideas. Again, this seems to be nuanced, but the idea is I think it's communicating the messages.
Yeah, but here it's CBD
Right, you can repeat the comment.
down below.
Yeah.
I like that.
So just so clear, like in 1, the second box under strategy, which says support new high-quality commercial, and you can put high-quality
Well, you've got
and creative commercial, and then you
Yeah.
can do the same
down there.
down here and
Yeah,
here.
yeah,
under
okay,
Stonebridge
okay, yeah,
and multifamily.
Okay, go ahead. I
Okay.
like it.
And again, this level of craftsmanship in writing these, we can do that. almost maybe I would encourage you guys to go through this and look at that and find those types of improvements to this. But then also, my guess is that this is gonna change again once you talk with the board about it, right? To say, this is what we're trying to convey, and they say, oh, well, maybe if you said it this way, we'd understand it. It's I think that's helpful.
Yeah, although I think what we're doing here is good, because at least if we've got
refining
questions
it,
among
yeah.
us.
Agreed,
then- yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
I'm not
okay.
trying to stop, I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
yeah.
just expect that there'll be other new
Yes,
nuances,
yes.
that'll
yeah,
come up.
Yeah.
So when we're saying 3 stories, as it relates to the CBD, we're not setting any height limitation on those 3 stories, is that correct? Because right now, I believe, isn't the limitation like
26.
30 feet?
It's 26.
And the develop-
Specific limitation, yeah.
And the developer
2
came,
stories or 30 feet.
and the developer came in with a plan that was, I don't think as tall as Paul's house, and it got shot down because it was too tall. So I think, I would like to see a positive statement that we're not limiting the height, we're judging the design. I mean, I'm not saying you can build a 50-story building, but I'm saying that shouldn't be the break point by just having it. I mean, and the reason I say that is this. Jeff, when's the last time you built a high-quality architecturally desired house with ceilings 8 feet or less?
No.
You don't do it anymore, right? That's not the
Never did
market.
it.
Right. And in order to build a 3-story building that isn't stick-built and get 3 stories, it has to be more than 30 feet.
So what if I change it to this? Allow developers to be creative and build, with building design to allow for structures taller than 2 stories that fit within the overall look and feel of the village.
The only problem is then you need a subcommittee to decide whether they like what the developer is presenting. And then who are they to
Say ABR.
determine? I'm just, and that
Yeah.
changes all the time, I mean, one board's perspective changed the outcome 15 years ago to what we can and cannot do today. So are you gonna get in this 2024 architectural sort of stymied next 20 years of development? And then those board members are dead or not on the board anymore, but their stigmatism is still being pasted? I don't know.
People still live on North Avenue and have daylight issues.
I think you have to be really careful with the credentials that someone's given, or able to say you can't do that here because I just don't like the way it looks. That's a slippery slope. So I think it has to be, if it's a math equation, it's a math equation. You can't build any taller than X, or something along those lines, as opposed to whose design is better than mine.
Is there any way that going back in history adds anything to the wording? I mean, you couldn't build many of our cherished homes today because of restrictions that we have put in over time. You sure couldn't build a children's home.
Right.
But they were there and they fit our character and, I mean.
Define the character.
Right, exactly.
yeah.
So could we
Yeah.
kind of maybe embrace that creative potential somehow or something that, because that certainly makes us a little able to consider taller or, I mean, a lot of our roof lines can't happen anymore on our great houses.
I agree. And a good many of our Lake Bluff historic homes
Right,
couldn't be built the way they are today because they no
Exactly.
longer conform.
That's kind of my point. So, days
Right.
gone by, if you have a board who is not gonna permit this house to happen because it's not meeting certain criteria, it's like I'm penetrating the daylight plane for more than 8 feet, then that board has now created a stymied village feel.
It's closed to business.
That's-
I mean, that's why I'm thinking, what is different in that first thing than what has happened over and over there with them trying to develop it? How do you get
Well,
around
I think
that?
this
Do
group, what's
zoning
different
or
is that
what?
this group is trying to encourage the village board to be open to things that are taller than 2 stories.
So should we say, change the zoning right there, or are we just saying?
Well,
that's-
you do that, in, well, actually, it says that further down.
In the notes, it says we're required a referral to, I don't know if
Well,
that's.
I was gonna go to where, it's actually in 4, for multifamily regulatory controls, it says align comprehensive land use plan and zoning code. So the idea of aligning the vision with the regulations is what that means.
So we should drag those up? So those get dragged up into one as well?
Yep.
Yes, and one I was just looking at will require referral to PCZBA, which then we'd be revisiting the neighbors on North all over again and what's changed.
So Drew, when you're done writing notes, could you read the revision that you had proposed a
Yep.
while ago with this?
You know, ultimately, we're gonna be breaking this down into, two goals. You know, development, encouragement for development and rework multifamily, and then we have, the benefits of the business district. I mean, if we're moving verbiage from 4 to 2 and from 2 to 1, and it's all sort of saying the same thing, in my mind's eye. Not saying that's bad. I mean, maybe that's ultimately the focus. You know, it's redevelopment, it's reworking controls, it's working with the ZBA.
So what are you thinking?
So I've got, and, well, I mean, that's where I was trying to get to, like, even this goes back to the idea of, can these be, the tactics, are they universal?
They are. 3 out of 4.
I think the reason to keep it broken out now is to communicate with the village board and PCZBA, so they see this, but I agree, it can be collapsed,
Right, these are tools that are gonna be universal.
yes.
Here's your card, use it for this, use it for this, yeah.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, I mean, Ignite CBD, going across the board, we've changed it to allow developers to be creative, to allow for structures taller than 2 stories that fit within the overall look and feel. So again, that's design-driven, not regulatory-driven. And then going across, where it got to the cell potential measures of success, now it says village board enter into development agreement, that's in the parents, village/owner, those are the who gets into that agreement. Then go to the next line, support new high quality and creative commercial residential development, target miscellaneous housing, then evaluate possible building fees, impact fees, evaluate incentives such as building permit fees, impact fee reductions. That's in parents, and then goes down to the next line where now it's repeating that same cell, which is down in the Ignite Stonebridge development. Stonebridge, which is aligned comp land use plan and zoning code, consider reducing impervious fees. Yeah, it's the same cards.
So a way to, I don't know that we want to do this now, but a way to redo this is to move a line comprehensive land plan over to high-level goal. So in other words, right now our goals are, you know, specific to geography or use of the property. Maybe the high-level goal needs to be, you know, align comprehensive land use policy and zoning code. And then under that is Stonebridge, under that is PCZBA.
Sentence 1 of the transmittal memo, the village needs to make it clear to the owner and the broader development that it was open for business.
Yeah.
This is chiefly done by aligning the comprehensive plan
Yep.
with the zoning code.
Yep, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Yep. And this is where we want to see those changes applied.
Yep. Just writes itself.
Any other specifics here? Do we want to prioritize these, or I think the way we've just done it, we probably need to take another look at this as we've talked about it being reconstructed? I don't know if there's a prioritization here. I think it's all equal priority if we do the change in the spring
I would
that you're
agree,
talking
the
about.
list is, it's the list is the list.
Yeah, okay.
It's down to 4, so it's pretty,
Pretty
big progress.
Distilled, yes.
So I did have a question about that. Did the whole bring the strengths of the CBD to East Lake Bluff to other parts of town? Was that just dropped off? Because that was 5 before, and now we're just have 4?
That's combined in 2, under the strategy, the second strategy cell. where it says rework zoning to benefit all business districts.
Okay, west side,
Let's fold
okay,
it up into that.
okay.
Okay, so, Drew, then I think you've got what you need, right, to
Yeah.
redo this?
Yeah.
To do, want this group to look at it one more time before we go to the village board? Do you want that in a meeting, or do you want that in a,
I could send it out and say, here's what I did. If you feel like we need to meet, we can meet. If you
Okay.
think it's good, I can find a date
Okay.
for the workshop.
okay, everybody good?
Sure. Awesome.
All right,
Sorry, can I ask another question? Back to the 5 that I don't see as part of 2 now, where it talked about tone deaf and, the amount of residents that are on that west side, which I don't know where we have a significant portion of where people live. What area are you referring to there? Where it talks about the western entrance?
I think that's talking, generally speaking, west of Sheridan Road. And that's where I would take it from.
I think the
But it's
comment-
talking about the
comment of
entrance to
meeting-
the community, so isn't that further out on more like Waukegan and 176? Isn't that what
But
we're
there's no
talking about?
residential there, right?
Right, which is what I didn't understand.
Right, so I think when
Okay.
people say west side, that's what people, I don't wanna put words in.
I think part of what we were talking about, I think Mark commented on it before, was that it's just not the entryway into downtown Lake Bluff. The west side of town is an integral part of our community that we can't forget about.
Yeah.
Both commercial
And
and
residential.
residential in other
Yeah.
areas other than East Lake Bluff.
anything else? Village administrators report.
I did share this with the Park District Executive Director and the Superintendent, who had some eyebrows raised by the impact fees, and, you know, what, if Stonebridge, to your point earlier, if Stonebridge happened, that would have an impact. They agreed that probably something the CBD probably likely would not have a large student population element to it, so. That was an interesting, probably predictable response, right? Yeah, I think that's probably it for now. This is good, and I look forward to the board, you know, getting a chance to chew on this with you guys. I think it'd be critical for you all to be there, you know, to have that workshop and maybe even sit around the same table to think about it.
Chair report, I have no report, Mark.
Pardon?
Chair report,
I
committee members report?
I'm pleased with how this is moving forward.
Yeah,
I do have something that, a non-agenda item. And I thought that was for everybody, not just for the people in the audience. I was with a gentleman today, who acquired a large building, over in the, where the car dealership is, and, you know, Sherwood, I think is the name of the road over there. And the initial purchase for the building was X, and it's in development. They own the building. And he asked me what the village would think about if he was smoking meat on a daily basis as part of a business practice. Constantly burning wood, smell over in that neighborhood. Is that, you know, for a redevelopment from a door manufacturing company now to a food processing company, is that an objectionable smell?
not when you lived in Texas.
We're almost next door to that, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I missed the first half of that.
So that district is L1, and it has performance standards attached to it for light, sound, but so there is actually specific standards around that. Which I don't know by heart, but there is a resource and a standard that I can get to you and share.
Yeah,
You
I'm
can look at
just
that, yeah,
I said I'm gonna be sitting here tonight, might as well ask.
yeah.
It could turn into a really interesting retail thing, per se, as well.
I mean, there's
Is he like a
businesses in the
wholesaler?
CBD that are
Is that what he's
smoking.
planning on doing, or?
He's
Regularly.
in the meat business prior to, and successfully moved that meat business, and now he's going into another one, which is prospectively prepared foods. You go to Costco as an example, his old business would provide you with prepared meals. His business would provide you with meats behind the counter, et cetera. Dog food, freeze-dried dog food has no stench. It's, you can go into your farmer's refrigerator and feed your dog high-end food, or you can feed it high-end dehydrated, chicken livers or something. And so there's a continuation development of the interest of, pre-finished meats, and some of that is smoked brisket and whatever the case may be. The parameters are, the meat doctors are in there every day, USDA's in there every day, they have their own office, and so they can't necessarily smoke at night like you would per se turn on your incinerator. And so, as part of looking into other avenues for prepared foods, smoking is a really big thing right now, whether it's cold smoked pork or whether it's hot smoked brisket. And so, I know that the genuine interest of this whole BAC is per se increase the bottom line of operating tax money for the village of Lake Bluff. This is something that he's chasing after. I mean, obviously paying taxes, but building a successful business.
But it'd be a retail establishment that would be paying sales tax.
Oh, exactly. Ultimately, the conversation, don't hold me hard to this, is that you'll be able to go there and pick up your meat that was smoked.
Yeah.
Or they have specials on Saturdays where it's brisket, and Sundays it's eggs and cheese or whatever the case may be. But there is an associated, some people might say stench. I love the smell of wood burning, but it would be a daily event Monday through Friday at a minimum, from 8 till 3:30.
Interestingly, in Libertyville, there's Milwaukee Taco.
Been there a lot.
In the parking lot, they've got a smoker.
Yep.
And it's what drew me to the business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine there must be some type of ventilation that could assist in that. If it was
If you're in
put
that
on
parking
this.
lot during the day,
Smells
it's
delicious.
on the west side of Milwaukee Avenue. You can, they're smoking.
Ron, doesn't John have one of those back here too?
He does.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know
It's
that.
almost too much at times. in terms of, I gotta go eat something.
That's exactly what it is.
All right,
That's what we're on today.
anything else from the committee? I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Debbie, second.
Second.
Second by Jeff. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Can I get a copy of that L1?
I'll